Today, we're going to be changing the front tire on my motorcycle using nothing more than the hand tools you see here. We're working with the Motion Pro Bead Pro FS heavy duty tire levers, or they're sometimes called spoons because, well, the end of these things kind of looks like a spoon. These Motion Pros, however, have this cool little fork system that helps to pry the tire a little bit further off of the bead. So first what you're going to want to do is remove the air from the tire by pulling the valve core, as you see here, and letting all the air out. Then we're going to start by inserting the tire levers under the lip of the rim and simply pry down. And then we're going to work our way around the rim a little bit at a time and just pry down again. And again, you can see how these particular levers, they just help to pry the rubber down a little further. And what you're trying to do is get over the safety bead. Not all rims have a safety bead. Motorcycles in particular, especially tubeless, I believe in most cases are required, especially on newer motorcycles, to have a safety bead. So you've got to pry it over that safety bead. That's what makes this so hard. And once you've got that done, just even a little bit there, that's about 90 degrees, and it's off, and that's it. And we can just work our way around and remove the tire completely. And then you'll just flip it over and repeat the exact same process. So now that we have both beads broken on this rim, it's time to actually pull the tire up and over and off the rim. Now the first thing you're going to want to do, you see where I'm kneeling, and I'm pressing that bead into the center groove, that center channel in the middle of the rim. That's the most important part. That's the key here, is to get get the rubber, get to the bead inside that channel, and that gives you a lot of working room. And then we can take and we can pry the rubber over. You see how I'm just putting the lever, just kind of resting it underneath the brake rotor to keep it from flipping back over while I work in the second lever. Don't worry, it's very minimal pressure there on the lever. It's not pushing hard at all. You're not going to damage the brake rotor. It's just putting light pressure so that I can work with the next lever. Also, you notice I'm using cardboard to protect my rims. It's not the most perfect solution. Sometimes it'll tear. You could damage the rim. If you're really worried about that, they do sell plastic rim protectors you can use as well. But in a pinch, these cardboard ones work really well, and I haven't had any problem damaging my rim. So again, we're just working our way around. You can see once again, I'm kneeling on that rubber just to make sure it stays tucked into that channel, that groove in the middle. And that's really the trick here, is keeping the opposite side from where you're working tucked as tightly into that groove as possible. That makes it easier to get it over the rim. And really, once you've got yourself worked around, remember when we broke the bead, about 90 degrees of bead is what helped us to finish the job? Well, same thing here. Now I've got 90 degrees, I can just work my way around with my hands. It's really just that easy. It just comes off. This is not a tubeless or tube tire. This is a tubeless tire. They're actually stiffer and tighter fitting. And you see how easy that just pops off with hand pressure. So now that we've got both sides broken loose, I'm literally just going to pry this out. This doesn't require any tools. You get it again into that groove, and that trick is keep it in the groove. Keep it in the groove, and then watch this, and we pop it out just like that. Just like that. Again in slow motion. And it's just that easy. So now we're going to install the new tire. I'm starting by checking this yellow dot. And according to Dunlop, that tells you the light point on the tire. Sometimes it's a red dot. You have to check with the tire manufacturer. But this yellow dot gives me the light point. We're going to line that up with the heaviest part of the rim, which is going to be the valve stem. So I'm going to line up the yellow dot with the valve stem. The next thing we have to do is look for the arrow that points to the direction of rotation of the tire. And we're going to have to put that on the correct side of the rim. So make sure you know which way the rim turns and look for that arrow on the tire to show you how it lines up. So now that we know where to put the rim in the tire, we're going to start to install it. And again, we're always taking advantage of that groove, that center groove. So I've got the wheel one side laying in that groove as best I can. and I'm just going to work my way around and push it all into that groove. And you see how when it's up like this, actually the weight of the rim is pressing itself into the groove. So that's giving you as much room to work with on the other side. And you notice, again, not using any tools. I'm just squeezing it together, and I'm forcing that bead, slowly working my way around the rim while it's in the groove. Look at the bottom there. It's tucked in as tight as possible into that groove, and you can literally just pull it back over the rim, just hand pressure alone. And the big benefit of using hand pressure alone is that you don't risk damaging your rim. So there we go. We've got the first bead already in there. And now we're going to just double check and make sure that it's lined up with the yellow dot. It's going to get a bit tighter once we get the second half in. So just double check, make sure your dot's lined up with your valve stem, and we're going to start working on the other side. And the other side, it's going to be the same thing. You still aren't going to need any tools. So we're going to start by pulling it down on one side of the tire, and we're going to press that second bead over the rim, over the lip, and into the channel. Again, the whole video is about using this groove, this center channel, to your advantage and gaining leverage. So I'm just working my way around, and I'm forcing that bead into the channel, and I'm tucking it in as tightly as possible. Some people use zip ties for this. I just wanted to show you that it's not really necessary, and there's more than one way to do this. So I'm just working my way around, using my knee to press that tire into that center channel as tightly as possible, and that's giving me as much room to work with. You'll also notice that I'm working on the opposite side of the valve stem. Sometimes your valve stem can force that bead up a little bit. It actually takes up some space in the rim. So by doing the valve stem last, or almost last, that makes sure that that valve stem isn't interfering with the bead and taking up space in the rim. So I'm just working my way around, and I'm just going to do as much as I can until I can't do anymore. And that's when we're going to need some tools. Now, I'm not using any wheel weights here. Instead, I'm using a liquid tire balancer. You can put those in through the valve stem, but I've heard reports of them kind of getting it stuck up. So instead, this is a perfect time for me. I'm going to go ahead and put in my liquid tire balancer now with this little last pocket of space that we've got. And that way, hopefully, I won't be dripping a bunch of it out while I'm finishing up the last of this tire. So just making sure one last time, we've got it pressed down as much as possible. And now we're going to start again with the levers. And you see how we have about as much as we took off. That's how much we've got left on the opposite side of this installation. So just like we did before, we're going to get underneath that rim, underneath that lip, and we're going to work our way around. And the key here is taking small bites at a time. If you get greedy, it's going to be harder. And the most important thing, if you have, especially if you have really nice rims that you don't want to scratch, the big bites that you take, that's when you risk hurting something, right? So little small steps, and you run much less of a risk of scratching something. And that really is the trick. Just go slow, especially again with the cardboard. It can get cut, and you could scratch something. Usually not as much of a danger going in this direction because you're lifting the lever on the inside of the lip. But see here, I get a little bit greedy. That's a pretty big chunk I'm trying for. I got greedy there, I'll admit it. So let's change this position, and let's move it over just a little. Let's take a little smaller piece, and that's going to go a lot easier now. And that's it. We're just working our way around. We're almost there. A couple more. And again, just be really cautious when you're pulling those in and out. And you see, again, I keep pressing my knee a little bit down onto that side to ensure that that lip stays into that center groove. We're always wanting to make sure that center groove isn't fighting us. That's really what makes this so much easier, is keep it in that groove. And you can see how the opposite side of the tire is really round. It's tucked all inside that groove. And both beads are actually fighting for space in that groove. So it's tight in there. It's just barely enough room. So I'm working my way around, making sure, yep, that last bit's in there. Get another piece of cardboard, and we're almost done here. We're getting really close. We got it all tucked in, and we'll give it a couple more pops. And this one might be it. And there you go. That's it. We're done. I'll take the lever. I'll give the cardboard some space, and I'll pry them out. And that's it. We're done. So lastly, I have a little tip on inflation. On this particular rim and tire combination, that center groove was so narrow that both beads are actually pressed up pretty tightly on the rim, and I was able to inflate the tire just using this little tiny backyard pump that you see in front of you. That's not always going to be the case. On a wider rim or maybe a bigger channel, your beads aren't going to be pressed up as tightly, so you might actually need a higher pressure pump. Sometimes you can go down to the gas station and use theirs, or you might need a bigger compressor just to get that bead on. It's just a matter of wiggling it around and getting that tire to seat on both sides. With a correctly matched tire and rim, shouldn't be too much trouble, but it might not always be possible with a regular backyard tire inflator. So I hope this video has been helpful in showing you how you can actually change your tire all by yourself in 20 minutes with normal hand tools. And just remember one last piece, you do have to balance the tire. When you pay your mechanic to change a tire, they generally balance it for you. That's part of the price. So you're going to either have to watch another video on how to balance a tire with weights, or use one of those liquid balancers like I showed here. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope it's been helpful. As always, have a great day.